Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Stiff Upper Lip podcast. We are back after an exciting week one of action. I'm your host, Tom, and joining me is my other co-host, Sam Longdon. How are you doing, Sam?
Hi, Tom. I'm very well.
Don't make it seem like I've roboticized this whole procedure.
Yeah. Well, the start sounded like a policeman, like hello. And then it sounded like a Good Morning Britain bit.
I can see that being the case.
Yeah.
Joining us also later on will be Max whenever he decides to get here from taking out the garbage, and Ed whenever he decides to join us from doing a bunch of overtime at work. But we ride Broncos country.
Broncos country.
Country, fuck's sake. Broncos country. Left wide. Alright, we got an exciting game week one, Sam, where both of us are actually starting out 1-0, as well as a whole bunch of good games.
This was the best week one I can remember.
Is that usually because you can't remember much of week one usually, like, as a whole?
I remember being quite disappointed that the Vikings lost the last 3 years that I've watched the National Football League.
That's fair. Maybe as well, one of the other reasons as to why you can remember this week one is because this is the first time that the New York Football Giants won a week one game since 2016, but we'll come on to that in just a bit. We've got a Thursday night game to back up, where the Buffalo Bills absolutely curb-stomped the defending Super Bowl champions Los Angeles Rams 31-10 in SoFi Stadium. Boy, howdy.
What a game. What a statement of intent by the Bills. Squarely aimed at people like Max, who had some issues with their elevation to the, realistically, the top of everyone's thoughts coming into the season.
Yeah, I mean, for us normal people that saw the Bills being good as a genuine possibility, considering how good they were last season.
Yeah, for us people that can appreciate and spot talent when it's there, it didn't come as a surprise.
Yeah, the only thing that was a surprise to me was just how weirdly off the Rams were, though, because the Bills played as perfect as a game as you could almost get. I mean, they had a fumble that was from James Cook on literally his first and only carry, and they had a couple. Oh, it was bad. And then they had a couple picks that weren't Josh Allen's fault. But other than that, he went 26 of 31, 3 touchdowns, including an absolute strike to Stephon Diggs over the top. So, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. So, prayers up to James Cook. I think he did get some, receptions on some, didn't he?
Nope, nothing. Literally, his only involvement in the game was the fumble.
Oh, no. I thought he got, some sweet... Dang. Wow.
It's a shame.
Go out to James Cook. Wow.
Are you at least slightly concerned, turning our attention towards the Rams, at just how tunnel-visioned and almost odd Matt Stafford played, in the sense of, he changed his throwing motion and it didn't look comfortable for him. I think this is because of his whole, he's been dealing with a lot of shoulder problems all preseason. He changes his throwing motion and now all of a sudden he can't look down a wide receiver that isn't Ben Skoranek and Cooper Kupp.
Is this baseball shoulder?
It is. It's
baseball shoulder. Yeah, it was concerning. A lot was concerning about this offense. Couldn't really get anything moving. Allen Robinson was non-existent. The run game really wasn't getting them anywhere. I will say, one of the things that I was concerned about in this game was the Bills' inexperienced cornerbacks. Oh. And, when our last picture of Matt Stafford was like the Super Bowl, and he's just slanging it to Cup, and it seems like you can't stop him. And Christian Benford put in an absolute shift.
I'm glad that you mentioned his name, because as people that listen to our post-draft recap will attest to, Christian Benford was a guy that we picked at random via the wheel to discuss, and boy howdy has he proven our belief in the wheel right, because he had a great game.
Yeah, by the time Tre'Davious White comes back in a couple of weeks, you're going to feel very, very good about that cornerback room.
Joining us is a man who maybe won't feel all that great about the Bills' cornerback room or anything. Max, 1, how are you doing? 2, what did you think about Thursday Night Football? He's still on mute. I don't know if he's actually here.
Oh, I thought I was pressing the talk more loudly button.
Oh, you were pressing amplify.
I was pressing the turbo button on my voice. Yeah. No. Yeah, I'm doing quite well actually. Thank you.
Is your microphone like a Madcap PS2 controller?
None of my business what bootleg microphone. I mean, it's none of your business. Oh, I suppose it's also none of my business. Anyway, the point is, yeah, I feel a little bit weird about the Rams because they're one of the most deceptive teams in the NFL. And I have a trust issue with them going back to the Todd Gurley degenerative knee problem when they insisted that everything was all right when it clearly wasn't. And when I think when Matt Stafford opted for like a 6-week non-surgical treatment, it just raises a few questions. I don't know if you touched on how bad the Rams' offensive line was, but they got beaten up and down the field.
I was just about to sort of bring that up because I saw a thing that somebody had collated the pass protection ratings for every team from PFF, from ESPN, and from somebody else, and the Rams were 30th overall by basically anyone. The only teams that were worse than them were the heavily injured Buccaneers and weirdly the Lions. But yeah, the Rams were dreadful in pass pro.
Yeah, and
Von Miller was an absolute firestorm.
Oh.
If Stafford's going to get pummeled like that without his shoulder, and it's just going to limit the offense to just he's got a obviously really good trust with Cooper Kupp. They're on the same level. He knows where to find him, but it's bad news for everyone else. Also, all that stuff about how Cam Akers was going to be the RB1 for the Rams this year. I think he had 2 catches. He had 2 carries. He was minimal. Darrell Henderson, who I've always thought was a much more explosive runner than Cam Akers, had the lion's share, but obviously bad offensive line. It didn't run block great either, and yeah, they didn't have much to work with all day.
Yeah, I'm just having a look here just quickly at the Russian box score. Cam Akers 3 carries, no yards. Darrell Henderson 13-47. So it makes sense. Really, my issue with the Rams is they seem to have sort of eaten themselves alive with Sean McVay's ego a little bit. Like you were seeing pet projects like Tutu Atwell getting a large share of snaps, which isn't going to help, and they just seem to be just banking too much on
getting a bit cute.
Yeah,
getting a bit cute.
Which, when you're playing against this Bills team, you want to at least get the basics right, and they just never did. So, I believe in them to turn it around because McVay is a good coach, and they are defending Super Bowl champions. But man, this was a horror show for them, really. Sweet. Anything else to add before we move into the Sunday slate of games?
Jalen Ramsey was getting just beaten into the dirt left and right.
That was your Super Bowl prediction. You wanted Jalen Ramsey. I think your Super Bowl prediction was you thought Jalen Ramsey was going to get mossed every single time he was the nearest defender. He didn't, but he did look a bit pathetic trying to crawl, go after Stephon Diggs, who was rolling over across the
Oh my god!
I got the ick from that for Jalen Ramsey.
He had such a weird game though, because like for such an elite cover corner to all of a sudden be perfect passer rating on every pass that he was targeted, like not a great.
A lot of that is schematic. I think weirdly enough, I know I'm down on Matt Stafford and the Rams in general, but I'm not panicking about them. I think the O-line is a huge concern, but I don't think they're going to play that badly every week, to be honest.
Fair enough. All right, let's turn our attention to Sunday, and we've got a special one this week because we have the G-Men up first, 21-20 win away in Tennessee on the road, their first Week 1 victory since 2016, only their second of the decade. Sam, scale of 1 to 10. I'll wait for him. Scale of 1 to 10. How elated are you that you're not on a losing record after 1 week?
I've never had this feeling before. I feel like I'm a ball of light, no longer taking a physical form. I'm not, it's week 1. We scraped a win against a Titans team that did not look good. This season broadly will probably not go well. But there was a lot of good shit to take away from this game. Obviously, Saquon looked to me like he had that burst back, which, I mean, obviously the last 2 seasons have just been a, crapshoot. But he looked like back in 2019, 2018, Saquon Barkley of it. Like 160-something yards.
He looked better than that.
Arguably.
Not to be too hyperbolic.
But yeah, and I mean, it was another Daniel Jones game in that he made some plays where you think, maybe there's a guy to keep around, and then he misses wide open receivers sometimes and doesn't have that great pocket presence.
The weird thing about Daniel Jones's day is, like, if you actually look at his box score, it's about as clean a performance as you're gonna get from Daniel Jones. I mean, he went 17-21 with 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, but like, it's just when you watch him. It's just when you watch him play. It's
the pick was absolutely like on him, just trying to force something. But I think this is the, like, this year with like Daboll, I think this is the best kind of environment for him, because Daboll is tough on quarterbacks. You need to just, I mean, Brian Daboll was really chewing him out after some like missed throws and like missed reads. Like, if he can't thrive in this kind of position, then I think that tells you everything you need to know about his future career. But like, he's gonna, if they tagged him next year, it'd be $31.5 million against the cap.
Wow.
So he's gonna have to be pretty fucking good to justify that. But,
I'm not gonna lie. The CFL bells are ringing for Daniel Jones. 31 million just for the tag, but it's gonna get worse because they're not gonna want to re-sign him in that unless it's for like way cheaper than that. I could see him maybe going and being a backup somewhere, but I just can't see him being a highly paid starter just ever.
He's an £8 million quarterback.
Yeah. He's a guy that you get in as a bridge guy.
Yeah. So, and there'd be no point just like keeping him around if it wasn't just as like a backup or a bridge guy. Like, I think they have to go into next season with him explicitly being like,
What was the score of the third quarter of this game, by the way?
So, at half, it was 13-0 Titans. The Giants, well, they won the third quarter 13-7. I'm not entirely sure exactly of the sort of scoring breakdown, but then the Titans were completely held out in the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
It's amazing what 20 minutes in the first game of the season can do to impact your entire expectations.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Shane was saying like before this game that people are gonna exaggerate either way. Like if we win, people say that we're probably better than we actually are. If we lose, then we're probably a bit better than people will say. But
I felt like the game was like, I think the Giants with a healthy Saquon Barkley are going to be a far more competitive team than what they have been. But I think for the Titans, it was possibly more concerning for the Titans this season than it was. Not to say it wasn't promising for the Giants.
Well, the Giants, if they're basically in the first year of a rebuild, like it's not, no one's gonna have sky high expectations from this. But the Titans came into this as the one seed in the AFC, is much more concerning for them than it is promising for the Giants.
Yeah, obviously, AJ Brown was going mental for the Eagles, and Derrick Henry looked a step slower, I think.
Yeah, he did. And I will say, the tackling on Derrick Henry was very good. Wrapped him up quick, wasn't able to break that many tackles.
If mediocre Tannehill sets in for the Titans this year, which is a possibility.
Oh, that's a death knell.
That is not good news for Tannehill's time in Tennessee.
The thing that I sort of wanted to touch upon, Max briefly mentioned it about how AJ Brown was going off for the Eagles. The most targeted receiver on the Titans this year was fourth round rookie Kyle Phillips, who had 6 catches for 66 yards. Their first round pick Treylon Burks had a fairly decent long play, but other than that, it was a couple short passes and that was it. I'm not seeing much pop out of their wide receiver room. I mean, Kyle Phillips had a pretty good day for a 5th or 4th round rookie. Can't remember which. Someone wants to correct me on that. Let me know on Twitter or whatever. But Treylon Burks has been a lot of talk in preseason, and I know we did this whole thing last year, and then Jamar Chase ended up being great. But Treylon Burks' issues seemed more than just a concentration thing. He seems to actually be concerning for the Titans. And then they've got, Robert Woods is fine, but he's coming off of a pretty gnarly injury last year. Dontrell Hilliard got some decent looks in the passing game. They're going to be leaning more on Derrick Henry than I think that they ever have. And if he's getting bottled up by teams like the Giants, who, granted, their defense has been sort of a more middle point where their offense has been a low point the last few years, but they've been all right. If Derrick Henry's going to get bottled up and held out of the game this much, I have real concerns that the Titans aren't going to be anywhere near the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
Can I give you one final? Oh, go ahead, Sam.
No, I was just going to say, I said I was very pleased with how they dealt with Henry, but to say that was with such a talent poor unit, because the Giants' defense is talent poor. But it is wink rich. So, that'll always give you something. But it does not bode well for the much, much, much better defenses that Derrick Henry is going to have to drag his team through.
Absolutely. Also, while in there, Ed, how are you doing? First of all, welcome in. Oh, he's asking for a quick moment.
He's composing his thoughts.
All right. In which case, that's entirely fair. Well, I assume, Ed, you probably don't have much to say here about this Titans-Giants game, if you just want to give us a little thumbs up or down. All right. Well, in which case, let's turn our attention to the probably second best weird game of the day, where the Pittsburgh Steelers went on the road to Cincinnati and managed to beat the defending AFC champions 23-20. 5 turnovers from this Bengals offense, including on the second play of the game, Minkah Fitzpatrick with a pick six. This was probably the most convincing performance out of the Steelers' defense I've seen since that weird year where Mason Rudolph was in and they just played like the top 1 unit in the whole league. There were shades of the curtain a little bit in the sense of, 9 sacks, 3 for Alex Highsmith, 4 interceptions. One of them was an absolute beaut by Cam Sutton. Jumped the route on a post route up the middle. It was convincing. And then all of a sudden, because of lacking play calling from the Steelers offense and not really much push in the run game, all of a sudden the Bengals clawed back. They score late in the game. It's a guarantee with Evan McPherson. Until Minkah Fitzpatrick, making a case for player of the week on the defensive side of the ball, gets in there and blocks the extra point. This game's going to overtime, and we see 3 missed kicks in a row. What is going on? Evan McPherson misses wide left on a chip shot because the laces were in. Then Chris Boswell drills one with the doink of the year already from 56. And then, my bad even, we didn't see 3 missed kicks in a row. The Bengals get back into field goal range. Arthur Mollett, coming off the edge, managed to sack Joe Burrow, forces a fumble. It then gets them out of field goal range. Steelers then go on a final drive late in the game. Mitch Trubisky hitting Deontay Johnson and Pat Freiermuth, and Boswell drilling the game winner. This game went crazy.
That was
I think long. Joining the call at this moment was a mistake.
How are you doing, Ed?
I'm okay. House stuff forced me to be a late arrival to this, so I do apologise. I am excited to talk about the weekly slate. I can see, I note from our show run that the games you've already discussed, I'm glad, because I doubt I'd have had much more to contribute to those ones. Excited. Let's talk some ball.
Yeah.
If Ed shaved, he'd look remarkably like Chris Boswell.
I have actually thought about this a few times. You do have Boswell-esque energy about your look in the face, especially.
The problem is, do you know who Chris Boswell actually reminds me of? I think in my mind, he looks like Teddy from Bob's Burgers.
Agreed.
Like is this reference fallen on deaf ears?
Not on deaf ears for me. I agree with it.
Just looks like yeah. Well, anyway, this game was a really fucking good time until it wasn't. Like,
yeah, it was. It was slugfest until it just collapsed.
Yeah, that's the thing. They were trading these turnovers, and then the Pittsburgh offense would get mired, and then they turn the ball over again, and then get mired again, and it was interesting. And then it got to the point where it had gone on for too long, in a sort of a fight where that both of the competitors it's in neither of their interest to continue anymore.
Yeah, but I always find, especially if
that's where this game was.
I thought of it more as a sort of weird technical wrestling match wherein you get to the end and you're like, who is actually going to win this? Because somebody's got to, right? They can't just keep trading blows forever in overtime. And it seemed like nobody could quite get the finishing blow. And all it took was a bit of magic from Deontay Johnson and Pat Freiermuth to make it happen. Why didn't that happen sooner? Oh, that catch from Deontay Johnson.
That Deontay Johnson catch.
Yeah.
Seriously, if you've not seen it by now,
of class from the Steelers offense.
It was, and
the first and only moment of class from the Steelers offense.
Well, we had a few weird trickeration plays, but other than that, like the first moment of traditional classy play that actually advanced the ball properly was the Deontay Johnson catch, and my God, what a catch! But yeah, I disagree that it was like a sloppy slugfest at the end. I was more, somebody's got to win. I am deeply interested just from how does this game keep going on when we've been in field goal range 3 times now and neither team can win it? Moment.
Well, the Bengals long snapper got hurt. That's why.
Well, yeah, but we're not. It was more of a rhetorical thing, but whatever.
But it is true. If the Bengals, I mean, not to prolong this discussion for another 86 minutes, but you have to think if the Bengals long snapper doesn't get hurt, then they scrape a win despite losing the turnover battle 5-0. And it's a different conversation. I'm not getting Steel Curtain flashbacks. I'm getting like 2017 Bears?
2018 Bears.
Yeah, well, that had a doink as well, obviously, but I don't like. I didn't really like what I saw from Pittsburgh on offense at all very much. And I know it's not an original take. It's just like it's one of those things where, like I was saying, it's amazing how much your entire opinion of your season can change on a whim after week 1. And I just think we could be looking at a very different reality.
Oh, yeah. I'm clearly never going to be advocating that after an offensive performance where Mitch Trubisky's throwing 21 of 38, 194 and a touchdown, like, that's good. I'm just saying that the defense played out big ball and we got a fun game out of it. It ended up being way more fun than if it was like a massive blowout, even though one team just couldn't move the ball at all. So, from a neutral perspective as well.
You can't get 5 turnovers every week, though.
You can't, but also an important part of this is that the Bengals' defense is still also loaded with talent. They didn't lose anybody.
No, but I don't know. They're in that medium tier of NFL defenses where they aren't going to get blown out, but they're not quite like a difference-making defense, if you know what I mean. There's very few properly elite defenses that, and I actually think Pittsburgh is shaping up to be one of those, but there's very few of them where they actually can win a game, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Most defenses can lose you a game. Not many can win you a game, if that makes sense. Not on a reliable basis.
Yeah. I agree with that point, although I do think that there are enough playmakers on the Bengals side that, I mean, last season's playoffs especially proved it. Like, their defense balled out against the Titans, and that was kind of what got them through that game. But anyway, we move on.
They would have won if they drafted Nasal.
Move on slightly to a little bit of news that came out of the game, which is that TJ Watt tore his pec, reigning Defensive Player of the Year. Would have been on the shelf for, it was feared, maybe 4 months. They've actually, it's looking more and more likely as more and more opinions are coming out from doctors and sources close to the team that apparently it's only going to be a 6-week thing. So it's one that I think, me personally, I've gotten away with a little bit here because, man, it would have sucked to lose TJ Watt for the year. Sam's aggressively spamming one of my emotes at me in the Discord, but I'm going to take that as the sign to move on, even though we spent about 5 minutes less on this game than the Giants game. Let's move on.
That's because it was less exciting.
All right. We'll turn our attention now to the main event of this podcast day, where the Green Bay Packers traveled to US Bank Stadium and got the brakes beat off them by Justin Jefferson, who won it 23-7. Ed, Max, take it away, because I know you want to.
The rest of the Minnesota Vikings were also there, but less consequential.
It wasn't a one-man performance. Like, Justin Jefferson was very, very good. And I think it gave the Packers a taste of what other teams sort of had when Rodgers and Adams strolled into town. But I think that it was as comprehensive a victory as you're likely to see. I think the difference was that the Vikings comprehensively schemed Jefferson open.
Oh yeah,
which I think his average separation was 4 yards per reception, including like one of the touchdown receptions, which was he was in 10 yards of space, and that's probably the best wide receiver in the NFL, or certainly like a top 2 or 3 guy. And I think that the other sign is the Green Bay offensive line didn't come to play at all, and the Vikings front seven absolutely hammered them.
One of the things that I saw a lot of talk about was Kevin O'Connell may have had such a massive role for the Rams, specifically in scheming Cooper Kupp open constantly, because what we were seeing from Justin Jefferson was like that level of he was open almost every time that Cousins looked downfield, just purely through excellent scheming. That's got to be exciting for you, right?
Yeah, I'm very happy. I'm very, very happy about how the offense looked. If there's one flaw, it's third down offense. Like, Minnesota weren't great on third down. I think they converted less than half of them, which is perhaps more of a Cousins struggle than a scheme struggle, because, I mean, third down is famously not his down. But I think there are so many positives to this, and I think that the inquest in Green Bay must be kind of pretty stark at the moment.
Max,
that wasn't even in the top 4 most comprehensive defeats of Week 1. The Packers played pretty badly, but they didn't exactly get blown out of the water. I mean, it was like a 13-point game with 20 minutes left. I think it really was like, it came down to 3 things. As Ed said, the Vikings they looked a lot more up for it, and they were way more physical when their defensive line was matched up against the Packers' offensive line. I think Zadarius Smith obviously came out firing. DJ Wonnum was really impressive as well. Harrison Smith, I think Ed, you pointed out, he played one of his better games I've seen against the Packers. He was very sure tackler. He made some key stops, including, and I think this is another one of the main differences, that the Packers were pretty crap inside the red zone. I think they had a goal line stop, and then they had a 4th down inside the red zone that they didn't convert later on in the game, where, like, the problem is they got down so early that they had to go for it in those situations. And AJ Dillon got stuffed, and that offensive line got overwhelmed on the 4th and 1. I mean, yeah, it's not easy to tackle AJ Dillon, but Harrison Smith on the 3rd down really did pop him, which was a huge play as the game unfolded. And I think, they had like a 4th and short where they decided to throw it to a double covered Robert Tonyan in the end zone, which was like a bizarre play call. It was like they were just like, hey, I wonder if this play works and we can use it later on in the season, which was bizarre. And I think the third difference was that the Minnesota Vikings do have the best receiver in the game. And as you say, like, I don't think there's too much of an inquest, to be honest, with the Packers. I think a lot of it is understood. But the big question would be, you've got all 5 of your main defensive backs returning to the second year of the same scheme with Joe Barry. Why is Justin Jefferson so open all the time? And why isn't Jair Alexander your best cornerback covering him? Like, he's like, why isn't he covering him? Well, we play zone. Okay, but like, come on, let's do something about this. Jair Alexander was he wasn't shadowing, but he was mainly covering Thielen in the first half, and I don't think Thielen had a target when, I do think Jefferson is probably going to win plenty of battles against Alexander. He's just that good, but like, give him a chance. There was so many miscommunications, and to be fair, they did hugely adjust to that at halftime, and I think he had like 151 yards at half and 155 and finished with 186 or something. And I think there was one play in the second half where he had like a 20-yard completion, and it was against Savage, and Savage kind of got up and looked around as if to say, like, I was supposed to have help on that play. So that would be the main problem for the Packers, but yeah, they were clearly the second best team, but weirdly I feel better about them than I did this time last year, because I thought they actually showed marked improvement and adjustment in the second half, even though the game was kind of over. And that's my spiel.
Yeah,
that's the end of that story.
I think that might be kind.
What do you mean?
Yeah, I'm happy to sort of. I just think that you say, on the one hand that isn't supposed to be an inquest, but on the other hand, the best receiver in the game got 4 degrees of separation on every route that he run. Every route that he ran. Like,
the one thing
if there doesn't need to be an inquest after that, then
I'm sure I said that was the one thing they would have an inquest into.
All right.
I want this to devolve into a classic Wilkins Saito.
I honestly don't understand, like
a semantics off.
I was expecting because you said that Max was being like light almost. I was kind of expecting there to be like a follow-up remark for that, but
okay, I have a follow-up remark. Did you actually watch the second half, or were you fast asleep in your barn?
No, I actually went to bed at half-time when the game was won. But then I watched it back the next day.
I mean, if the first half had gone like the second half, it would have been a comprehensive boat race. But it didn't. Like, the Packers were much more even in the second half, and recency bias. I saw that 36 hours ago.
They lost by 16 points.
Yeah, okay, but we didn't lose as badly as the Jets lost to the Ravens. We didn't lose as badly as the Cardinals.
The Jets weren't expected. No one was saying that the Jets were a consensus division champions.
Yeah, but also you said it was the most comprehensive defeat. That's not
actually, to be fair, Max, you did lose by more than the Jets lost to the Ravens.
Yeah, but we didn't lose as badly. Do you just look at like the newspaper score and it's like Baltimore ... 24, New York ... 9, and you're like, well, I know enough about that game to move on.
Yeah.
To be fair, they didn't.
I think.
To be fair, New York Jets didn't have notable ayahuasca legend MVP Aaron Rodgers, but I'm not gonna throw fuel on this fire.
They had Broadway reject Joe Flacco.
Yeah, you expect to lose by 24-9 when you've got Broadway reject Joe Flacco, Captain Checkdown.
So what we are saying then is that it is the most comprehensive dismantling of a team this week, and we can move on.
Oh no, it's not the most, because there's still one more. But I digress. Let's move on anyway, because there was another game that went all the way down to the wire. We got 3 in 1 week. The Saints came back from another Falcons-esque odds. They were 97.1% likely to win the game, and the Falcons threw away a 23-10 lead and lost 27-26. Unbelievably, again, the Atlanta Falcons, it doesn't matter who their head coach is, it doesn't matter who's at quarterback, they will blow games, and the Saints came back from the brink of death, 27-26. Marcus Mariota with a 20 of 33, 215-yard, no touchdown day. Jameis Winston should have been picked off a couple times, but kept his clean sheet in the interceptions column. Threw 2 touchdowns, 260 yards. Taysom Hill, by the way, 81 rushing yards, including an absolutely massive one right at the end of it was right at the end of the first quarter, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, Saints come back and win it. Much to Ed's chagrin.
Taysom time.
I mean, the first thing to say about this game is that if that was like week 5 onwards, Jameis wouldn't have made it half time before Dalton was in. So the fact that they were able to come back at all is by virtue of it being early in the season. It was a very entertaining game, and I think we all sort of like said a similar thing, which was like, actually, it's going to be quite nice to watch this Atlanta offense when they're humming. And then they went off the boil, and we were all like, oh yeah, this is also what Atlanta do.
Yeah. It is true. I mean...
Yeah, I thought Pitts was a bit of a disappointment. Sorry, I think
I'm a bit...
maybe we'll call my internet the problem for that.
I'm a bit sort of... no, I'll call it that I'm distracted by what is Sam doing? He's just running around looking for a fax machine or something. But yeah, Kyle Pitts...
I feel like I can smell smoke, and I'm trying to figure out if it's any of the multiple snake vivariums to my left.
Oh, okay. In which case, you deal with smoke and fire.
Yeah. Also, before I do that, the first 3 quarters of offense for the Saints were fucking dreadful, and then in the fourth quarter, there's 3 quarters, they had 8 first downs. In the fourth quarter, they had 10 alone. And in the last 3 possessions, they ran 12 plays for 208 yards and 17 points. Jameis Winston, he's got something.
It's because that's when his LASIK kicked in.
Yeah.
Like he finally took the LASIK bandages off.
From the side of his head that went like...
Oh. But yeah, crazy game in an already crazy
Can
week.
you think of like a...
What's happening here is Ed is actually also backwards in time from moving into a barn. So and that's causing some issues, just in case anyone was wondering why me and Ed are so unsynced.
Yeah, I'm using my phone as a hotspot at the moment. That's how terrible the internet is here. And hence why I struggled to make the call for quite so long. Yeah, do I have many more points about the Saints versus the Falcons? I think that the person who's going to be most disappointed is the people who care about the Falcons. And not just like Falcons fans, but like there's a lot of people who like have a little bit of an affinity towards the Falcons. And I feel like every year we think, oh, they're not going to do it. And the sort of the cast changes, the faces change, but the fourth quarter collapses stay the same.
If you like the Falcons, you like them for who they are, and if you love the Falcons but hate their fourth quarter collapses, you never loved them in the first place.
It's a good point. It is a good point. All right, I think that we should move on. We're finally out of games that went down to almost the last kick. In fact, they did all go down to the last kick of the game. We're going to turn our attention now to the Hard Knocks team. The Detroit Lions hosted the Eagles, but sadly the story was always the same. The Eagles winning this one 38-35. But a good game, a high-scoring game. Both teams' running attack went off today. Eagles, Jalen Hurts went 17 rushes, 90 yards, and a touchdown. They got all 4 of their running backs, or all 3 of their running backs and their quarterback all registered a touchdown. They didn't throw for a single touchdown. Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell, and Boston Scott all getting one in. And on the Lions side of the ball, DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams the main attraction. Although there was an interesting point as Amon-Ra St. Brown scored a touchdown 3 minutes earlier to bring the Lions back into this game. Then his brother Equanimous St. Brown scored a touchdown for the Bears. So a nice little interesting story there. But yeah, the Lions' rush defense just wasn't up to snuff. They were a bit of a problem last season, and against a team like the Eagles, who absolutely beat the brakes off them last year, there was improvement, but it was still always going to be a tall order.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let Max wax lyrical about AJ Brown in a minute, but I thought the linebacking of Detroit just absolutely wasn't up to snuff. And I know they have this new rookie who they think the world of, and he looked amazing in preseason, but I think it was a little bit of a baptism of fire of being like, oh, these guys aren't just going to run duo every time. Like, I think it came down to play recognition a lot for Detroit, and I think they were slow to react and slow to tackle.
Yeah, this is a game that wasn't as close as it looked to the final score. There was a lot of garbage time from the Lions. I mean, at halftime, Jared Goff had like a baker's dozen yards, and yeah, the Eagles were just sort of running rampant. I really like the dimension that AJ Brown brings to this team, because you can't just load the box, because he's a big enough guy, a physical enough guy that if he's in a one-on-one matchup, Jalen Hurts can deliver him the ball, and he's going to make a play on the ball. And then, I mean, there was a play in this game, I think, where he dragged a guy was like draped on him for like 20 yards after the catch, and I mean like arms around him, and he just powered through it and down to like, I think it was a goal to go situation. So you can't just like take your chances and load the box. You really have to pay AJ Brown attention. I mean, Devonta Smith, who was a really good, I think he was like a bit part player in this game. So
yeah, he didn't have any receptions at all.
Exactly. So yeah, it's a scary prospect having a multi-dimensional attack like that, and I think better defenses than the Lions will be on the receiving end of some beatdowns this year. I think they're a really fun team to watch. It's a bit concerning that their defense let the Lions back into the game like that, but I think I don't know. Jared Goff is he's a garbage time quarterback. Like, when there's something on the line, he tends to come up small, but when he's playing with no pressure, he does throw some nice passes. So yeah, and Swift and Williams are a great duo. It is weird what you said about I didn't take a close look at this game, but it would be interesting to read a bit more about how the offensive line played, because that was meant to be the anchor point of this team, and you're saying they were the worst by most grades in the league. That's a concern.
Yeah, there was a thing that I'd sort of mentioned earlier on in the episode, Ed, where someone had collated the rankings for different teams, and I mentioned it when the Rams were on, because they were 30th across PFF, ESPN, and PFN. And it was only when you looked at who was below them, it was like, oh, and the Lions were dead last in that thing for pass protection rankings. So, one to watch.
That feels... I mean, the one thing you could say about that is that Jared Goff holds on to the ball for too long, always has, always will. And he's always going to make his O-line look worse. But that's certainly something to watch, isn't it, if they didn't have a good game?
Yeah.
I've got to confess, I didn't... Like, I saw a lot of pressure on Goff, but I saw him wandering into a lot of pressure. So I'm not sure how much of it I put on the D-line. On the O-line. But, yeah. One to watch.
Yeah, I mean, this year was always going to be like a weird year for the Lions. I know that they were on Hard Knocks, and everyone's always got a thing about writing up the team that was on Hard Knocks as being like, oh, they're going to be good this year. And, like, they are definitely improving. There was a lot of improvements that I saw in this one. I know that they've gotten a bad pass protection grade, but their run blocking was almost poetic at points, like on the DeAndre Swift 50-yard rush downfield. Like they are improving and they are going to keep getting better, but without a quarterback, and I'll sing this forever, that Jared Goff isn't a good starting quarterback at this point. Without a proper starting quarterback, there's no real hope for the Lions. So they can just sort of expect everything else to be fine, and quarterback play to just be down. So I'm not going to take too much stock in the fact that they lost here, because I actually like the Eagles a lot this year. I think that they'll be a hell of a team to try and stop if they can stay healthy.
They're still going to have the Jalen Hurts limiting factor for me.
That's fair.
We can have a referendum at like week 9 to see what my opinions on Jalen Hurts are.
Well,
More than happy to do that.
I'm pretty sure we did that last year, and then Jalen Hurts went on to be pretty good at the end of last season. So we'll do that. We'll do that. I agree.
AJ Brown was the perfect wide receiver to get for the Eagles because he makes inaccurate quarterbacks accurate with his catch radius and his sort of like way he can box out DBs.
That's fair. All right, shall we turn our attention to some games that will probably have less to talk about, but still ended up being largely interesting? And I'm going to turn the attention straight away to Jaguars 22 away on the road at Commanders, who won this one with a score of 28. I don't have much to say about this game. It was a very Wentzian performance and also a very weird Trevor Lawrence performance. He didn't seem to look all that great, but Jahan Dotson, the rookie, had one of the better catches of the week by quite a wide margin on the touchdown to win the game. I mean, way to go get it, rookie. On a dive, in very well pressed coverage, lays out, makes the catch with his left arm. What more could you possibly want? There's a lot to maybe almost enjoy about how the Commanders won this one. It was a commanding performance.
Yeah,
I tell you what,
I think they might have
it's
the
a
best.
brave man. Sorry,
There's
Max.
a lot of people. Sorry, I was going to say there's a lot of people who might not agree with this, but it is possible that by mid-season we're saying that the Commanders actually have the best wide receiver trio in the league between Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson, and Terry McLaurin. That's not at all implausible, which is only going to lead to probably even more pressure being put on Carson Wentz, which he's inevitably not going to live up to. I was going to say the only other takeaway I had from this game is the decline of James Robinson and the triumphant emergence of Travis Etienne might have to wait a little longer because it didn't look like happening in week 1.
No, and he was clearly very ring rusty, which is fair because I don't think he played in his final year at Clemson and then missed all of his last year due to injury. So he's like 2 years out. I can understand why, when live rounds are flying, you're dropping a pass. But yeah, the fact that James Robinson was getting passes on the goal line, you sort of feel a little bit like, uh-oh, he's in Peterson's doghouse. I want to talk about Carson Wentz if I can for a second.
Absolutely.
Because 4 touchdown passes, and 2 of them were really nice passes, and then 2 of the worst picks you will see all week on back-to-back plays.
I actually disagree on one of them being a bad pick, because it was just such a weird but really good play by Trayvon Walker, who the Jags brought in to be a bit of a game wrecker. And if that includes like picking off a screen pass, then fair play. I don't. One of them definitely was Wentzian, though. I'll give you that one. But the other one, I think that was just a good defensive play.
I'll tell you why the second one was classic Wentzian. All right, because what he's done is he's seen the play too late, and rather than throwing it with touch, he's had to hammer it in, and that's given, because he's thrown it at a lower angle, that's given Trayvon Walker, carte blanche to go up and get it. Because if Wentz sees it earlier and anticipates the space being there, he doesn't have to leather it through coverage. It's Wentz. It's just what he does. Like, I'd expect a lot of other QBs to also make that mistake. But it was, yeah.
But it was also Wentz, yeah. I get you.
It was also absolutely prime Wentz.
yeah. Just one quick question to both of you. What does anyone sort of make of this Jags team? I mean, going on the road to the Commanders, who we've all actually sort of acknowledged their potential in the receiving game, especially, but the Jags hauled themselves back into it. Maybe with a better coach, they might actually not be. They might not be so turgid. They just need to knock some rust off of Etienne and, you know, get Trevor Lawrence to actually look like the number 1 overall pick again. But what's everyone think to their season potential this year? Because I'm unsure.
My worry is that you say getting Trevor Lawrence back to the number 1 overall pick. I mean, he hasn't shown any of that in the NFL. That is my main concern, is that I just haven't seen it from Trevor Lawrence at this level. If he doesn't, then that's like obviously a massive problem for the Jags, because I think they can improve massively from last year and be a more respectable team and still easily be in the conversation for a top 5 pick.
I personally, I think they probably won't get a top 5 pick, because I think they've got a lot of talent, but for me it's youth. Like, when you look at the Jags team, like, it's very, very hard to look at that Jags team and not see they drafted all of those players, like, very, very recently.
Yeah.
Like, I think, like, Marvin Harrison, not Marvin Harrison, Marvin Jones, like, and Christian Kirk, I guess. But, like, there's not a lot of veterans and there's not a lot of veteran leaders on that team.
They just can't draft. Who was their last really successful high draft pick?
Jalen Ramsey?
Yeah.
Josh Allen?
Yeah, Josh Allen. I mean, but then they always pick people who are really highly rated, like...
They've whiffed on guys, because there's Chase on and there's CJ Henderson and there's people like that who they've drafted high on and whiffed on.
Henderson was making a fool of himself for a different team altogether this week, so...
It's a shame that game didn't happen, though, so it's alright.
You're quite right.
Yep. I'll go along with it. It was very youthful. They did lose some of their sort of main veterans on the defense. Like, I know Miles Jack was such a key part, and I know that he had a bad year under Urban Meyer, but, like, who didn't? Urban Meyer's a bad coach, but he would still be a great veteran presence to have the green dot in this team filled with youth. So yeah, I think that they'll eventually come good. They just actually have to work out the kinks that all of these young, talented guys have got to really work with. So yeah, it doesn't help that they're on another head coach. So you know,
one thing to watch out for: a lot of ed guys in Jacksonville right now.
There is
a lot of ed guys.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on them. Let's turn our attention to to SoFi Stadium again, where the Raiders went on the road and lost 19-24 to our Los Angeles Chargers. Davante Adams' first game as a Raider had a pretty good game as well. 10 catches, 141 yards and a touchdown, including one absolutely gorgeous juke move. I can't remember who it was that he ended up juking out of his shoes, but man, had that Chargers defense in a spin cycle. But, you know, when you're counting on a guy to show his quality, you got Justin Herbert and the weird non-actual DeAndre Carter White dude that they showed on broadcast to also make a play. So there you go. Keenan Allen picked up a hamstring injury. Whether or not he misses significant time or if it's just this week, it's still pending. But yeah, anyone got any thoughts about Chargers Raiders?
Raiders O-line looks a mess. The Chargers got 6 sacks, and I know they've got a very dominant sort of pairing with Bosa and Mack, but they were also like getting a lot of pressure up the middle. And you think that like some of it, I think honestly, was Carr holding onto the ball, staring down Devontae Adams, like because no one else. It was the Adams show today, and I think it was perhaps to the detriment of the Raiders' game plan. I mean, as well as he played, and as well as like Carr did when he targeted Adams, I think that the offense was quite stale.
Yeah, it was a bit one-dimensional, wasn't it? I mean,
I agree.
They just
Darren Waller had a decent game, but Hunter Renfrow, who was really like the chain mover naturally in that offense, was just barely involved until late in the game.
Yeah, it's almost damning whenever you look at a Chargers stat line and you see Hunter Renfrow only having 3 catches for 21 yards. It's like, oh well, they didn't move the ball very well, and it was right. They sort of didn't. They had 18 first downs, but like you almost they got most of those just targeting Devontae Adams like in a big spot. Like you say, Renfrow is the chain mover. He's the guy that you'd go to as the safety valve. So yeah.
Like when they were using him in the China route last year, they were like almost unplayable on 3rd down because of how Renfrow got himself open. And like it's not like Adams is a slot receiver. It's not like they can't both be on the field at the same time. It's not Lampard and Gerrard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Adams is a great player in the slot, but no, it's a little. Yeah, maybe that's something to track, like Stafford in Cup, having a bit of tunnel vision. I mean, yeah, like too much of a good thing potentially. I mean, obviously last year or the last few years, the Packers' passing attack has really been channeled through Adams in the same way, but the Raiders certainly don't have the offensive line that the Packers have had. And they certainly don't have A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones or Jamal Williams back there. So,
and they also...
Yeah, they need to open it up a bit. And the defense is... So, although, I mean, you talk about the Falcons, the Chargers somehow almost found a way.
For sure.
I see this as them turning a corner, perhaps.
Another false corner. Another thing I'm tracking is I think Khalil Mack had his best performance for a few years, but he is also a sneaky week 1 guy, a bit like Sammy Watkins. He's a bit of a September guy, he in Chicago he didn't play as well deeper as the seasons went on. He often got hurt, but if they do get a good Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, then yeah, I mean, watch out for that. That's a problem.
Well, the problem for me here with those two is that Joey Bosa gets hurt more often than not, and so does Khalil Mack. Like, how likely is it that by week 8 they're both still healthy and playing up to their usual level without like a niggly hip injury or an ACL or something?
Yeah, it's possible, isn't it? And it is the Chargers, so probable if anything. But I mean, let us be optimistic, because if you watch like the top 5 Justin Herbert throws from this game, I mean, that guy just, the way he throws the ball, he just comes out different. He has like a lot of QBs in the game these days have a cannon, but it just looks different coming out of that guy's hand. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was a throw he had down in the red zone that I've not seen a ball fly out with that sort of violent velocity for quite a long time. MVP form, perhaps.
Yeah,
it's like he's from space, isn't it?
Oh, I love that guy. I was saying it because I do like watch parties and stuff in this server that we use to record, and I was saying it to the sort of 10 or 11 people. I was like, Justin Herbert is without a doubt my favourite player that isn't like on my own team, because every game he's doing something that just makes me think, wow. Like, I know Mahomes is also capable of making you say, wow, but I feel like Herbert does a lot of the basics better. Like, Mahomes is a bit tentative to a deep drop back, and you make you think, like, oh, he should have just gotten rid of the ball there. Herbert just plays consistently great football, but at an unbelievably high level as well. So, yeah, I just love that guy. I'll happily sit here for the next 5 hours and talk about Justin Herbert. But I want to move on because we still got a few games left, and I want to at least finish off the slate before. But I know that Max, you said that you were planning on leaving at 6:30.
Oh yeah, I'll let you know.
All right, okay. Well, in which case, I don't know if there's much to really say here, but I'll let you talk about a former Wisconsin Badger, because we're going to go talk about the Colts and the Texans, who had our first tie of the season, 20 apiece, missed field goals and missed extra points all over again. This one dragged on. This one was the one that dragged on for me. I know that you said it about the Steelers game, but this one I couldn't believe was still going on at 9:30.
See, I disagree, because I was being told that I had to care about Steelers-Bengals. And so that's what made it drag on. Whereas this one, I felt like I had no horse in the race. So I just sort of sat back and watched the disaster unfold.
Just to jump in, I'm a dip.
You get a dip?
The burning smell was our tea that got left on the hob, and one of us knocked one of the hobs on by accident.
Oh,
so now there's
no.
a pizza that was on fire in my shower.
Oh,
so I'm gonna go sort that.
All right.
Can we get a picture of that to use as the thumbnail for the episode?
No,
please.
I have already showered it and put it in a bin bag.
I was gonna be like, but a wet pizza that was on fire would be great.
I'm gonna go deal with that.
Okay.
And
in which case, yeah, will do. See you later, Sam. Okay. Colts Texans. Jonathan Taylor had a pretty Jonathan Taylor day, but I don't really have anything really to talk about here with this one, because it just got overshadowed by the other games that were all happening in the same window that all went mental.
I think. Sorry, Max.
I was going to say, yeah, this is probably my last good take for you. Wait, what games have we got left to talk about?
So we've got Colts Texans, Chiefs Cardinals, 49ers Bears, Patriots Dolphins, Ravens Jets, and then Bucks Cowboys, Broncos Seahawks.
Oh my god, we've got so many.
Yeah, but most of the games that we've already discussed had a lot of points, and now we don't have to really talk about very many of the rest of them. It was very top heavy.
I'm going to be leaving you guys at the graveyard just a little bit, but I think actually we can probably knock out one of the main points about Broncos Seahawks as well, and it's not even related to this game, but a thematic point from week 1 was a lot of coaches sort of shat the bed in end of game situations. Lovie Smith opting to punt from midfield on 4th down with a minute or whatever left in overtime. That was just a bit cowardly. That's not sending a great message. Hackett and the Broncos' final drive was probably the worst example in week 1, but you also had Zach Taylor kind of kicking that field goal that they missed on 3rd down. Who else sort of made an ass of themselves? There was someone else did it as well. Hackett, Lovey, Zach Taylor, and Mike Vrabel as well kind of bungled the end of the Titans-Giants game. And, a few of these guys are first-time head coaches, but it was really it kind of underscored the fact that it's week 1 shaking the rust off a little bit, but the Hackett one was just embarrassing. I don't know if there was a single person in that stadium who was more clueless than he was at the end of that game. Everyone was just take a timeout. And
there's quite a funny clip of Peyton Manning being like, all right, we'll take a timeout now. And then you can just see him for 30 seconds just holding a timeout sign. Just please please. And then they took one with 20 seconds left, and he was just like, what is going on?
Anytime you can keep 2 timeouts in your back pocket to take in between Seattle kneel downs, God, that just makes the bile rise, isn't it? That is obscene. I mean, there's probably actually Broncos Seahawks is probably the other game you've got left with the most talking points, other than maybe like Dak's injury, perhaps. But yeah,
well, that is the only talking point I had from that game. I fell asleep; it was bad, but yeah.
Well, that is my final takeaway from this week: is head coaches. You got a week, most of you. Please consolidate your shit, because, come on, we can. It's not often like, I know it's a high pressure situation, but genuinely, all of us here could do it, and we're babbling morons. So,
yeah, I mean, I think that the Lovie Smith one was pure cowardice, and that's why I liked it the least. But yeah, just get it together, everyone.
Sort it out.
I assume that's you done for the evening, Max?
Yeah, I'm going to love you and leave you. My dinner's not on fire, but my raging passion for the NFL is ablaze. After week 1, a very fun week, and I think the other main takeaway that I had was, you know how I was very pessimistic going into the season. Yeah. I think my final thought is just show it to me, because there's always hype. Always hype in the NFL. The NFL, more than any other sport I've ever watched, the cycle of preseason hype is insane.
Yeah.
And I've just decided that until I've seen it from a team, I'm not going to believe that they can do it.
That's fair enough.
Fair enough. Yeah.
All right.
I'll love you and leave you. Have a good evening, everyone.
Yeah,
bye.
See you later.
See you later.
All right, Ed, let's rattle through the remaining games, because I'm done with Texans-Colts already. We got a tie. That would usually be exciting, but in this week, not so much. Chiefs 44, Cardinals 21. This is one of the best Patrick Mahomes performances that I've ever seen, but it also happened to come at one of the weirdest Kyler Murray performances.
I think it was an incredible Mahomes performance, but I think it was an even better Andy Reid performance.
Yeah.
Like that, it's maybe the best coached offensive game I've ever seen. Just like from a pure this is basically a new playbook. Yeah, Murray played weirdly, but Murray, with everything that's gone on around him and the fact that he had no one to throw to, I kind of understand Murray not having a very good game.
Yeah,
and Murray's not a good game was still more points than was scored by half of the teams in the NFL. So we can't dump on them too much, but they were worlds apart, these teams.
Yeah. It definitely shut me up, because, I mean, they even got great performances out of the running game, which has been a sort of weird issue talking point for them for ages. They played as smart a game, did the Chiefs, as I've seen them do, ever. They weren't just relying on the high-end talent and just taking a deep shot to a fast guy and that being an effective way of moving the ball, because they knew that everyone's going to be playing too high safety. They played effective dink and dunk, but they also moved the ball incredibly quickly as well. It was just brilliant to watch. To the point where I forgot that this game was going on at one point, because Red Zone stopped cutting to it, because there was nothing else really to say about it. The Chiefs just mauled them for 60 straight minutes, and it was nice seeing Isaiah Pacheco and everything getting some decent gains and getting a touchdown as well. Just a great performance. Patrick Mahomes has more career, or I think in 76 or 78 career games, has 8 games where he's thrown 5+ touchdowns. Peyton Manning, in almost 5 times as many games, has 10. It's otherworldly what Patrick Mahomes is capable of doing when he's feeling his game, and the offense is working. It's like a well-oiled machine. It was possibly the best performance we'll get out of an offense all season. They just shut it down.
It was certainly up there. I don't think we need to say any more about this game.
Yeah, agreed. Sorry, Chiefs fans, but that's what happens when you just absolutely batter the Cardinals. All right, next one was the clusterfuck in a typhoon over at Soldier Field for, well, weirdly what might be one of their last seasons at Soldier Field, because they apparently got planning permission to move, said the Bears. And they put up a 19-10 win. As I mentioned earlier, EQ St. Brown scored a touchdown 3 minutes after Amon-Ra, so that was cool. But other than that, like, this game blew to watch. It was a bad game, but the Bears came out on top. I don't put any stock in either team right now because it was just dreadful conditions, and that offers up bad games.
I think it was a very interesting game. Like, it was one of the more enjoyable ones to watch, in my opinion, because everyone was like slipping over and stuff. It was at a certain level I got a sort of sense of childish enjoyment out of it. But by any other metric, it wasn't the best game of the weekend. But, like, a win's a win. Chicago won a game against another sort of preseason darling in the 49ers. I mean, time will tell whether that's relevant, but the 49ers could be absolutely kicking themselves at the end of the season.
They could be, yeah. My only point is I don't want to be down or up on either of these two teams, because, like I say, when you're playing in conditions that were as bad as they were at Soldier Field, I mean, they were hauling out rakes all game to try and brush water off the field. It was dreadful condition wise. So, like, how you expect Trey Lance and Justin Fields to effectively move the ball in that sort of weather? I didn't, and I was sort of mildly vindicated by it being sort of such a weird, sloppy, but, like you say, almost whimsical sort of game. So good job, Bears.
Yeah.
You win.
What they need to do is, like, release a supercut of it set to the Benny Hill theme.
Yeah. Oh, that would be great. That would probably have been much more, like, you'd probably know more about the game and these two teams if you did do that than if you actually watched the game in normal speed. So that sounds about right. Shall we move quickly on?
Sure.
Sweet. The Miami Dolphins did what they always do in Miami against the Bill Belichick Patriots and beat them. Doesn't matter how good or bad either of these two teams are. Any time that the Patriots go to Miami, they lose. It's just a fact. The big story coming out of this one, though, is that Mac Jones, I believe, has had his X-ray on his back. Apparently, they've done all the tests and everything was fine, but he was getting back spasms, and it was feared that he might have broken his back, but apparently he's all right. So I don't know if he'll end up playing this coming week, but their backup's Brian Hoyer. Ooh.
Ooh. Special shout out to Javon Holland, by the way, for the Dolphins. I thought he was amazing today. He was absolutely everywhere. Yeah, there was one nice throw in this one, which is where Mac Jones finds Kendrick Bourne on an absolute rope down the left hand side. But it was one of those games where, like, quality was a little bit few and far between.
Yeah, we got a real nice touchdown pass as well to Jalen Waddle. Weirdly, when you listen to the broadcast, you can hear the commentators saying, "Oh, I don't agree with the call to go for it here and not take a timeout." And then Tua hits Jalen Waddle over the middle, and he takes it the remaining 35 yards or whatever on a long touchdown. But yeah, you're right. I mean, Tyreek Hill had a couple, like, good catches, but it's what we sort of expected.
The Waddle one really annoyed me because it's how Emma used to beat me on Madden, because it was just a quick slant, and then the two safeties run into each other.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. But yeah, I mean, great defensive game by the Dolphins. That was pretty much all I have to say, really. I'm gonna wait
Yeah.
and see what both of these teams look like in sort of week 5, because I don't know. I never bank on the Patriots or Dolphins at this exact moment in time being like a true representation of themselves up until we hit October. It feels like September just doesn't exist for either of these two teams, and they sort of play well enough to win games, bad enough to lose them, and it just depends on who they're playing.
Seems like it might apply. I mean, other than the Bills this year, who are clearly the real deal, I think that might apply to all of the rest of the AFC West, AFC East.
Yeah, and just depending on the strength of the opposition, which is why like the Patriots winning here was so expected to me. They always lose in Miami, especially in this iteration. So yeah, I'm not going to take anything from this one. Just a good win for the Dolphins, and hopefully Mac Jones is all right, because I don't want to watch Brian Hoyer in the year 2022. Yeah. All right, we got 3 more games. How much do you really want to mention Ravens Jets, other than a couple real nice passes from Lamar Jackson into Devin Duvernay for the touchdowns? Because I don't have anything to add to that game at all.
No, other than like to commiserate with Jets fans, because it may well be that you've got another season of this.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Feel for you, buddy.
Yeah. Best of luck, Jets fans. Also, fair play, Ravens. You went in and beat the brakes off the Jets in New York and did it. Yeah, you achieved the goal. You have a little bit of a point, actually, just quickly, about Patrick Queen, which made me chuckle. And it was what was it again? You said that his best performance is when he's run blocking off of an interception.
Oh yeah, he is the world's most enthusiastic run blocker when the team have turned over the opposition, but he is very, very poor as a coverage or inside linebacker. It did just make me chuckle when I read it, so I thought like we'd share it for the listeners. But yeah, I firmly agree. Patrick Queen seems devoid of the skills that I saw and quite liked in his rookie year. Just completely gone. He might have like the Harold Landry turn. Do you remember like my criticism of Harold Landry?
Yeah,
which is that he got that under control, and he was clearly like very talented. He just needed to sort out that thing that was such a flaw in his game.
Yeah, Patrick
Queen needs to sort out when he's going to arrive at the ball carrier.
Yeah.
Because he's either arriving too early or too late in every snap, and he needs to get there on time. As soon as he gets that down, he'll be a good linebacker.
That seems to be a thing, though, for like quite a few of the inside linebackers. I know I don't want to dredge it up, but like Devin Bush had the exact same problem, but he was playing way too timid after his ACL tear. This week he finally turned it around. I'm hoping that Patrick Queen can turn it around for himself, because I don't want people that I actually quite liked the look of, especially at linebacker, to just suddenly just drop into complete crap and just not have anything. Because, you know, I liked Patrick Queen, but he just isn't good right now. All right. I have literally no points from a gameplay perspective for the game that caused me to fall asleep, which was the Cowboys 3, Buccaneers 19. The only
I did.
Oh, go on. Here you go.
My one thing to say is that I perennially forget how good Mike Evans is as a football player.
Yeah,
like he gets a lot of grief from me from his tattoo because his tattoos are gross. But like, I think that once again he showed that like he deserves to be talked about in that upper echelon of wide receivers. Like even though he runs about 4 routes, he runs them at an impossibly high level.
Yeah. He's also just a monster in the red zone. Like, you always want a guy that'll win 1-on-1, sometimes even 2-on-1 coverage on a fade route. Like, and that's what he did here for the only touchdown of this game. Was it nice to see Julio Jones, by the way, out there? Like, playing pretty well for a catch or two.
He took jet sweeps. I was like, what on earth is going on?
Brilliant.
But yeah, and I like these where number 6 seems to suit Julio as well.
Yeah, it does. It really does. So, good to see.
And that's double as many as the Cowboys scored, which is always fun.
Yeah,
I was thinking, having just reading the news on this one, you might think, oh, like Dak got injured and like Cooper Rush came in and the offense couldn't get going. No. The offense couldn't get going with Dak in. It was a pretty woeful performance from everyone.
Yep. There just wasn't anything. I mean, they lost Amari Cooper, and I was sort of thinking, that's a loss, but it's not too big of a loss. I mean, they still got CeeDee Lamb. They still have like pieces. No,
Michael Gallup.
No, they did not. It was abject. It was devoid of quality. It was devoid of anything. And then when Dak went down, it was just like the nail in the coffin. He's gonna miss 6 weeks. Cooper Rush is apparently going to be the one that plays in all 6 of those weeks. Best of luck.
I think San Francisco are getting some calls, don't you?
Well, I thought this, and then Jerry Jones said that they weren't gonna put him on IR, and they think that Dak will be fine after 4 weeks. But that seems a little optimistic. I mean, I know Dak's a quick healer, but 4 weeks for a dislocation to your throwing hand? Like, what are you expecting him to be good after those 4 weeks?
What are you hoping for?
Yeah.
It was terrible. It was terrible from a Cowboys perspective, and I lapped it up.
Yeah. I think everyone did. I think that the one thing that most people can agree on is fuck the Cowboys, because they just are. They just are arseholes, aren't they?
Yeah, I'll go with that.
All right. And then for the final game, Monday Night Football, where the Denver Broncos, under the watchful gaze of a new head coach and a new quarterback,
Broncos country, let's ride,
lost 16-17 on one of the worst final drives that you will see. They had a minute left. They got to about the sort of 48 or 49 of the Seahawks, and instead of using a timeout on 4th and 5 and letting their now $40 million a year for the next 5 years quarterback take over the reins and try and make a play, they absolutely blew it and went for the field goal after burning down 40 seconds of time. It was dreadful.
As Max put it, it was the most senseless play of the week.
Yeah.
And it killed what was... Like, it took this weird... Because, like, they still had an opportunity to kick, and you're thinking, well, like, Brandon McManus is a decent kicker and can probably make this. Like, I don't think... It's certainly within his range. But he just... They iced him and he missed. Yeah. And then he missed it again. And you're just like, well, if they've iced him and he's missed, you've even then got an opportunity to throw the ball.
Yeah.
Like, you've got another opportunity. He's just showed you, oh, actually...
this might be a problem. They still had 2 timeouts as well. They could have easily gone for it. And it's not like they weren't having success. I mean, Russell Wilson had a sort of iffy day. I think that, to be honest, their play calling was what let Russell Wilson down more than anything. Their opening 2 drives, they only targeted a wide receiver once. And this is up against the Seahawks cornerbacks, who is Ronald Jones, Ronald Darby, I believe.
Former Eagle.
Oh, Sidney Jones is who I'm thinking of. So it's Sidney Jones, Tariq Woolen, who is a guy that, I'm not being funny, I've not had good readings on him as an actual cornerback. He's fantastic athletically, but he seems very unpolished, very raw. So you could have targeted him. Or Kobe Bryant, who we saw in preseason was kind of struggling in coverage. They had Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton, and they still only chose to target Sutton and Jeudy for a combined 8 receptions on the day, one of them being the massively long play for a touchdown for Judy when they actually finally did put pressure on Kobe Bryant. And they just didn't do it for the rest of the game. It was such a weirdly played game from the Broncos, to the point where Geno Smith could get away with 13 passing yards in the second half, and the Seahawks didn't look like losing it.
No, and the thing that I liked about the Seahawks was the way they kept like disguising blitzers to rush up the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they didn't do it often, but when they got a rusher up the middle, they were almost always free and causing Russ a little bit of panic. Like, whether or not they sacked him is kind of by the by. Like, they were really highlighting a flaw that they'd found on the interior of the Denver O-line.
Yeah, and Cody Barton had a real nice game. Jordan Brooks as well. It was all about the interior, like, of the linebacker core for the Seahawks, because the Broncos didn't actually really put pressure on the outside, like throw outside the numbers every so often. And whenever they did, it was like, oh, great, you've thrown it to the guy that's now covered by Quandre Diggs. Like, scheme somebody open, Nathaniel. I don't feel any more enthusiastic about the Broncos. I feel way less. I'm starting to look at this thinking, like, we could be thinking in week 9 or 10, thinking, this is it for a Russell Wilson Broncos team, where they're like, by week 10, 4-6, and they're nowhere near the playoff picture because the AFC West is so stacked, and the AFC North's got the Bengals and Ravens, and there's no wild card spot left. Like, good job, you've ruined it, you wasted it.
This is the thing, right? No matter how things change, they stay the same. What were we saying last year? Oh, the Chiefs and the Chargers, they're really good. And then the off season, we were like, oh, they're all changing the AFC West. No. Yeah, no change.
There just isn't. So yeah, maybe they get it right, and maybe Nathaniel Hackett sort of wakes up and realizes, oh, actually, maybe I should, look at teams' depth chart and actually do some scouting on, like, a couple of rookies that haven't shown anything through preseason. Maybe I should target one of them. But yeah, Seahawks deserve to win this one, especially as well with the crucial red zone fumbles. Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams both having the ball knocked free. I like Javonte Williams. He's totally one of those guys for me that I could really, really dig, but both of those fumbles just killed the Broncos. And the worst part is they could have just gone for a kick. Any one of those drives where they got to the goal line and tried going for it on like 3rd and 4th down, they could have just kicked it. They'd have won. Geno Smith wasn't doing anything with the ball. The Seahawks had to rely on Rashad Penny. But they were allowed to because the Broncos just sucked. They just didn't get the plan right at all, and they deserved to lose. So, yeah. Woof. Ouch. 0-1 for the year. And this was maybe their most winnable game, in my opinion, the Broncos.
I'd go along with that. I think that is certainly an opportunity missed.
So, yeah, I mean, they've got the Texans this coming week, and they've got the Jets in sort of week 7, I believe. But other than that, it is pretty much all teams that I could see at least pushing for the playoffs, or maybe getting it turned around from their position right now. So yeah, they might have just completely fucked it by losing this game here. And in the AFC West, that's not a good sign. So yeah, sort it out. We'll talk about it later, but for now, could be a long season, Denver. I know this is week 1, but that was one you had to get. All right. How would you say if we were to say wrap this up and get some closing remarks and stuff, Ed?
That sounds lovely to me. And my closing remark can simply be, well done, Tom, for being a port in the storm for the listeners this week. You know, we had rotating cast of people joining and leaving, but the big man with the hair of a lion stuck it out to the end.
I appreciate that. you know, I always just want to try and like be a port of stability. I want to be the anchor of the show if I can be. You can actually catch more from the Stiff Upper Lip podcast. You can find us on Twitter at StiffLipPod. Also, I recently joined our friend Kieran on the show to talk about Bengals Steelers on his YouTube channel, so I'll share that on the Twitter account. But yeah, thank you for listening. We'll see you week 2.